After 10 years of my golden child sister constantly mocking me, she suddenly appeared unannounced in freezing day at my villa. I opened the door with a polite smile and asked if the delivery courier was. Growing up in the shadow of perfection shapes you in ways you never anticipate. For 28 years, I existed as the other daughter in the Harrington household, the perpetual runner-up to my sister Melissa's gold medal life. My parents never needed to verbalize their preference, their actions screamed volumes louder than words ever could. Massachusetts winters have a particular kind of brutality that seeps into your bones, but nothing compared to the coldness I felt within our family's colonial-style home in Worcester. The walls displayed Melissa's achievements, swim team trophies, debate medals, graduation honors, while my modest academic accomplishments collected dust in drawers. She was 3 years my senior and miles ahead in our parents' estimation. "Jenny," Mom would say while passing the mashed potatoes at dinner, "did you see Melissa made Dean's List again? Third semester in a row." The unspoken comparison lingered in the air between spoonfuls of gravy. Melissa capitalized on this dynamic. Behind our parents' backs, she'd mimic my walk, slightly pigeon-toed from a childhood injury, or mock my fashion choices with exaggerated gestures. "Are you seriously wearing that to Jessica's party?" She'd whisper harshly, adjusting her own perfectly coordinated outfit. "God, it's like you're trying to embarrass yourself." I absorbed these moments silently, collecting them like painful souvenirs. While she glided through high school as homecoming queen and valedictorian, I retreated into my studies, finding solace in mathematics, the one subject where outcomes weren't subjective. Numbers didn't play favorites. Her graduation party featured a custom ice sculpture. Mine had store-bought sheet cake. "You're lucky Mom and Dad still threw you anything," Melissa remarked while helping herself to a corner piece with extra frosting. "With your grades, you'll be lucky to get into community college." She was wrong. I received a full scholarship to MIT, not that my parents noticed amid Melissa's acceptance to Harvard Law. At family gatherings, relatives clustered around her like moths to a brilliant flame while I orbited the periphery, nursing lukewarm punch and forced smiles. College offered liberation. Away from Melissa's shadow, I thrived in the mathematics department, developing algorithms that caught the attention of my professors. For the first time, I experienced genuine appreciation for my intellect, not comparisons or backhanded compliments, but authentic recognition. Professor Keller, my advanced calculus instructor, became something of a mentor. A brilliant mathematician with steel-gray hair and kind eyes, she saw potential in me that I'd only glimpsed in myself during late-night study sessions. "Your approach to multivariable problems is fascinating, Jennifer," she commented after class one afternoon during my sophomore year. "You visualize mathematical spaces differently than most students I've encountered." Her words planted a seed of confidence that gradually took root. Under her guidance, I pursued independent research, applying mathematical models to financial markets. The work consumed me in the best possible way, intellectually challenging and blissfully free from familial expectations. My roommate, Alyssa, a vibrant psychology major from Arizona, provided the social counterbalance I needed. She dragged me to campus events, introduced me to her eclectic friend group, and insisted I experience more than just the library and computer lab. "You're allowed to have fun, Jenny," she'd remind me, tossing concert flyers onto my desk. "Differential equations will still be there tomorrow." Slowly, I cultivated a life with dimensions beyond academic achievement or sibling rivalry. I joined the campus hiking club, discovering a love for outdoor pursuits that had nothing to do with competition. The simple act of reaching a summit and gazing across the landscape brought a peace I'd never known in Worcester. During these years, visits home dwindled to obligatory holiday appearances. Each return to Massachusetts felt like stepping backward in time, compressing me into the smaller version of myself that had existed there. The kitchen table discussions inevitably centered around Melissa's law school triumphs or her blossoming relationship with Bradley, the charismatic future politician she'd met at the Harvard-Yale mixer. "He comes from the Hampton family," Mom informed me over Christmas dinner my junior year. "His grandfather was ambassador to Belgium under Reagan." "Fascinating," I replied, focusing intently on cutting a piece of turkey into precise portions. Dad cleared his throat. "And what about you, Jenny? Any young men at MIT catching your attention?" The question carried the weight of expectation. In our family's unwritten rulebook, academic success was merely a pathway to an advantageous marriage. My parents' generation still clung to the notion that a woman's ultimate achievement lay in securing the right husband. "I'm seeing someone," I lied, the fabrication slipping out easier than expected. "He's a graduate student in quantum physics." Mom's eyebrows raised with interest. "You haven't mentioned him before." "It's relatively new," I elaborated, warming to the deception. "His name is David. His father teaches at Stanford." The invented relationship served its purpose, deflecting further inquiries and momentarily shifting the spotlight from Melissa, who watched me with narrowed eyes from across the table. Later, she cornered me in the upstairs hallway. Dated the quantum physicist? Really, Jenny? I shrugged. They needed something to discuss at their country club brunches besides your perfect life. You've always been a terrible liar. Remember when you broke Mom's crystal vase and blamed the neighbor's cat? The memory stung. I'd been 8 years old, terrified of disappointing our parents. Melissa, at 11, had witnessed the accident and held the knowledge over me for weeks, extracting small favors before eventually revealing the truth herself. I'm not that scared little girl anymore, I said, brushing past her toward my childhood bedroom. Her hand caught my arm. Just be careful with your fabrications. When they unravel, you'll look pathetic. I yanked away from her grasp. Worry about your own life, Melissa. I'm sure keeping Bradley interested requires all your creative energy. A flash of something, hurt, perhaps, or surprise at my counterattack, crossed her features before her mask of superiority returned. Bradley and I are perfectly matched, thanks for your concern. That night, lying in my twin bed beneath faded posters of bands I'd long outgrown, I vowed to create a life that required no embellishment or defensive lies, a life substantial enough to stand on its own merits. By senior year, my research had produced tangible results. The algorithm I developed for predicting market fluctuations based on social media sentiment analysis garnered attention beyond academia. 3 tech companies expressed interest, sending representatives to campus to court me with promises of competitive salaries and creative freedom. Professor Keller advised caution. These companies will try to own your work and your future ideas, Jennifer. Read the contracts carefully. I selected Vertex Financial Technologies in San Francisco, partly for their innovative approach to financial accessibility tools, but mostly for the geographical distance from New England. Their offer included generous stock options and the opportunity to continue developing my algorithm with significant autonomy. When the acceptance letter arrived, I carried it to my favorite campus bench overlooking the Charles River. Spring had begun teasing Boston with occasional warm days between lingering cold snaps. Cherry blossoms dotted the landscape with pale pink promises of change. California? Mom questioned when I called with the news. But you'll miss Melissa's law school graduation. The timing wasn't entirely coincidental. Vertex's onboarding schedule provided a perfect excuse to avoid another ceremony celebrating my sister while relatives inquired about my more modest achievements. I start work the following Monday, I replied, feeling not an ounce of remorse for the scheduling conflict. My sister called that evening as I packed up my apartment. Alyssa had already moved out, leaving behind empty walls and amplified phone conversations. Running away, Jenny? Always taking the easy path, Melissa's voice carried the familiar condescension. Actually, I'm taking the hardest path, the one without you on it. She laughed. You'll never make it on your own. You've always needed me to define yourself against. Perhaps there was truth in her statement, but I was determined to prove her wrong. The startup exploded in growth during my first 3 years. My algorithm for predicting market fluctuations became the backbone of our platform, earning me significant equity. The transition to San Francisco felt like stepping into color after a lifetime in grayscale. The city's vibrant energy, cultural diversity, and innovative spirit matched something long dormant within me. My apartment, a modest 1-bedroom in Noe Valley, became my first true home. I painted the walls deep teal, hung abstract art that would have horrified my mother's traditional sensibilities, and adopted a rescue cat named Pascal after the mathematician. For the first time, I existed in a space that reflected my aesthetic rather than conforming to others' expectations. Work consumed much of my time those first years. The startup culture demanded long hours and total commitment, but unlike the exhaustion of constantly trying to measure up to Melissa, this fatigue brought satisfaction. My colleagues, mostly other recent graduates with STEM backgrounds, became my first adult friend group. We shared late-night coding sessions fueled by takeout and ambition, celebrated product launches with champagne on the office roof deck, and supported each other through the inevitable setbacks of a growing company. Tyler, our UX designer with a dry sense of humor and perpetually disheveled appearance, became particularly important to me. Our friendship evolved gradually, beginning with debates about user interface decisions and expanding into weekend hikes around the Bay Area and evenings exploring San Francisco's food scene. You know, for a math genius, you have surprisingly good taste in restaurants, he teased during dinner at a hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese place I discovered. There's an algorithm for finding authentic cuisine, I replied with mock seriousness. Inverse relationship between decor quality and food excellence. He laughed, the sound warming something inside me. And here I thought you just got lucky with Google searches. For months, our relationship hovered in the ambiguous territory between friendship and something more. I hesitated to define it further, wary of complication and still struggling to view myself as someone worthy of genuine affection. My family's dynamics had left scars invisible to others but painfully evident in my cautious approach to intimacy. Tyler exhibited patience I hadn't known possible. He never pushed for definitions or demanded emotional declarations. Instead, he simply remained consistent, showing up with coffee when I worked weekend hours, remembering details about my preferences, creating space for me to emerge at my own pace from the protective shell I'd built. On a foggy San Francisco evening about 18 months after my arrival, something shifted. We'd stayed late at the office, troubleshooting an issue with the platform before a major client presentation. Around midnight, the problem finally resolved. We celebrated with the emergency snacks kept in the break room. Stale pretzels and warm diet soda, Tyler observed, clinking his skin against mine. We're living the dream. Exhausted and giddy with relief, I found myself studying his face, the slight asymmetry of his smile, a faint scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood skateboarding accident he'd once mentioned, the genuine warmth in his eyes. "What?" he asked, noticing my attention. "I just realized something. That my hair looks particularly disastrous after 12 hours of stress coating?" "That I'm happy," I said simply. "Here. With you. With this work. With my life." The admission surprised me as much as him. Happiness had never been the goal, success, validation, escape had driven my decisions. Yet somehow, this unexpected contentment had found me anyway. Tyler set down his soda can and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "About time you noticed. Our first kiss tasted of salt and aspartame and possibility." The relationship developed with the same steady reliability that characterized Tyler himself. He became a fixed point in my increasingly successful but chaotic professional life as the startup gained momentum. When the platform secured a major investment from a Japanese banking consortium, the company valuation soared, and my equity became suddenly, dramatically valuable. "You realize you're technically a millionaire now," Tyler pointed out as we celebrated with slightly better champagne than our early days. The concept seemed abstract, numbers in an account rather than tangible reality. Growing up with parents who emphasized social standing over financial education, I developed no framework for managing sudden wealth. Tyler connected me with his former college roommate, now a financial advisor specializing in tech industry clients. "Don't let imposter syndrome make you undervalue yourself," the advisor cautioned during our first meeting. "You created genuine innovation that's changing an industry. The compensation reflects that contribution." Those words stuck with me, challenging the narrative I'd internalized from childhood, that my achievements were somehow less significant, my contributions less valuable. I began working with a therapist, Dr. Larson, to address the deeper patterns established in my family dynamic. "Your sister's behavior reflects her insecurities, not your worth," Dr. Larson observed during one particularly difficult session. "But you've internalized that perspective for so long, it's become your default lens." Dismantling that lens proved challenging work. Some weeks brought breakthrough insights, others left me emotionally drained and questioning everything. Through it all, Tyler provided steady support without trying to fix or solve my struggles. "I'm not always going to get this right," he admitted one evening after I'd withdrawn following a particularly difficult therapy session. "But I'm committed to learning how to be here for you." His willingness to acknowledge imperfection without abandoning the effort touched something profound. My family operated on conditional approval, affection contingent on performance. Tyler offered something radically different, unconditional presence regardless of circumstances. When the company went public in my 4th year, my net worth jumped to 8 figures overnight. Meanwhile, I developed a side project, an app that helped students learn calculus through gaming mechanics, combining differential equations with intuitive visual interfaces, that was acquired by an education technology giant. Financial security provided options I'd never imagined possible. My relationship with Tyler had reached a comfortable equilibrium, supportive and loving without the pressure of traditional expectations. We maintained separate apartments but spent most nights together, usually at his cozy Mission District flat with its eclectic furniture and excellent natural light. "Have you thought about what you want to do next?" he asked one Sunday morning as we lingered over coffee and the crossword puzzle. "You could do anything: travel the world, start a new company, go back to pure research." The question sparked something I'd been considering for months. "I want roots," I realized aloud. "Somewhere that feels entirely mine. Not a rental, not a temporary stopping point." The sentiment surprised me. After years of seeking distance and independence, I suddenly craved connection to place, a physical manifestation of the stability I created internally. 2 months later, I found the property in Sonoma, 30 acres including a Mediterranean-style villa and established vineyard. The previous owners, an older couple returning to France to be near grandchildren, had maintained the property meticulously. The moment I walked through the terracotta-tiled entryway and saw the view of rolling vineyards through floor-to-ceiling windows, something clicked into place. "This is it," I told the real estate agent. "This is home." Tyler supported my decision despite what it meant for our relationship. His work as a design director for a growing tech company required his presence in the city. We tried to make it work with weekend visits and video calls, but gradually the distance created its own reality. A year after my move to Sonoma, he received an offer to lead the UX division at a major tech firm in Seattle, an opportunity too significant to decline. I purchased the villa and threw myself into making it truly mine. Each room I decorated represented a deliberate choice, not an obligation to family tradition. The primary bedroom featured a handcrafted bed from a local artisan. The kitchen combined professional-grade appliances with warm, inviting details. The library, my favorite room, housed floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with mathematics texts, classic literature, and fantasy novels I'd secretly loved since childhood but hidden from my parents' judgmental eyes. My parents visited once, uncomfortable amid the California sunshine and contemporary furnishings. Mom inspected the kitchen with pursed lips, opening cabinets without asking permission. "It's very modern," she observed, her tone suggesting this wasn't a compliment. Dad seemed more interested in the financial aspects. Property taxes must be substantial for a place this size. They stayed 2 days before flying back east, citing Dad's golf schedule as the reason for their abbreviated visit. The relief I felt upon their departure confirmed I'd made the right decision in establishing geographical boundaries. Melissa never came. Her communications arrived solely through sporadic text messages, usually containing news of another accomplishment. Her wedding to Bradley Bennett, a fellow Harvard Law graduate with political aspirations from the Sutton family, his grandfather had served as ambassador to Belgium under Reagan, warranted a formal invitation that arrived with a registry link to items costing more than most people's monthly salaries. I sent a modest check and claimed a work emergency prevented my attendance. "Typical Jenny, avoiding family obligations," came her reply text. The years passed. I dated occasionally but found deeper satisfaction in my work and friendships. Tyler and I maintained our relationship for several years, balancing his life in San Francisco with my retreat to Sonoma. Eventually, though, the distance and our diverging life paths led to an amicable parting. He accepted a position with a major tech firm in Seattle, while I remained committed to my vineyard and developing investment portfolio. "We'll always be part of each other's stories," he said during our last weekend together, his gentle wisdom making the separation less painful than it might have been. My social circle evolved to consist of other tech entrepreneurs, artists, and a few neighbors who shared my appreciation for good wine and conversation uncomplicated by decades of history. On my 35th birthday, I purchased the vineyard adjacent to my property, hiring an experienced vintner to transform it into a boutique winery. Contact with my family dwindled to obligatory holiday calls and the occasional email. Mom sent updates on Melissa's growing family, twin boys, Jacob and Ethan, now 10, followed by a daughter, Sophia, age 7, and her husband's successful run for state senate. I replied with brief summaries of business developments, never mentioning my expanding portfolio of investments or the charitable foundation I'd established to provide STEM education for underprivileged girls. 10 years passed since I'd left Massachusetts. A decade of building a life defined by my choices rather than others' expectations. December arrived with unusual coldness for Northern California. A rare winter storm deposited a light dusting of snow across the vineyards, transforming the landscape into something ethereal. I spent the morning by the fireplace, reviewing quarterly reports from my various ventures while classical music played softly through the house's sound system. The doorbell's chime interrupted Vivaldi's Winter. I wasn't expecting deliveries or visitors. My housekeeper, Maria, had the week off for a family wedding in Mexico. Setting aside my laptop, I wrapped a cashmere shawl around my shoulders and made my way to the entryway, peering through the sidelight window. A woman stood on the porch, hunched against the cold, her face partially obscured by a scarf. Something about her posture struck a familiar chord. I opened the door, the winter air rushing in like an unwelcome guest. "Hello," I said with a polite smile I reserved for unexpected interruptions. "If you're looking for the delivery courier, they usually leave packages at the side entrance." The woman unwound her scarf, revealing a face I knew better than my own, older now, with fine lines around the eyes, but unmistakably Melissa. "Always the comedian," she said, her voice hoarse. "Aren't you going to invite me in? It's freezing out here." Momentarily stunned, I stepped aside mechanically. She brushed past, bringing with her the scent of expensive perfume mixed with cigarette smoke, a new habit, apparently. "Nice place," she commented, surveying the soaring ceiling of the entryway with its wrought iron chandelier. "A bit isolated, isn't it?" I closed the door, gathering my composure. "What are you doing here, Melissa? Is everything all right with Mom and Dad?" "They're fine. Dad's blood pressure issues are under control, and Mom's bridge club keeps her busy." She removed her coat, designer, naturally, and draped it over the entryway bench without asking. "I'm surprised you'd even inquire, given how rarely you communicate." "I called on Thanksgiving," I replied, leading her toward the living room more out of ingrained hospitality than genuine welcome. For all of 7 minutes. The fireplace cast dancing shadows across the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the snow-dusted vineyard below, dormant in winter but still majestic against the gray sky. Melissa gravitated toward the windows. "You actually own all this?" "The vineyard and the villa, yes." I remained standing, unwilling to invite her to sit. "You still haven't explained your unexpected visit." She turned, and I noticed something I'd missed initially, a hollowness beneath her cheekbones, a weariness behind her eyes that makeup couldn't fully conceal. "Can't a sister visit without an interrogation?" Her attempt at lightness fell flat. "Maybe I wanted to see how my little sister's been spending her mysterious fortune." "You could have called first." "Would you have welcomed me if I had?" The question hung between us, honest in a way our interactions rarely were. I didn't answer immediately, instead moving to the bar cart near the bookcase. "Would you like a drink? I have a decent Cabernet from the vineyard's first harvest." "Something stronger, if you have it." I poured her a whiskey, neat, and a small glass of wine for myself. When I handed her the tumbler, our fingers brushed, the first physical contact between us in over a decade. She drained half the whiskey in one swallow. "Bradley left me," she announced, staring into the remaining amber liquid. "For his 26-year-old campaign manager." How cliché is that? The news should have brought satisfaction, karma finally collecting its due, but the visible pain in her expression stirred something unexpected. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it more than anticipated. She laughed bitterly. "No, you're not. This must be delicious for you." "Contrary to what you might believe, I don't delight in your unhappiness." "Don't you? After everything?" "After everything, I moved on." I gestured around us. "I built this life without sparing much thought for what you were doing with yours." Her face flinched slightly, the barb finding its target. "Well, it gets worse," she continued, finishing her whiskey. "Bradley's lawyers are sharks. Prenup clauses, evidence of emotional abandonment on my part, whatever that means. He's seeking primary custody of the kids and threatening to expose some of my indiscretions if I don't agree to his terms." "Indiscretions?" She held out her glass for a refill, which I provided despite my better judgment. "I've been taking Xanax. More than prescribed." Started during his first campaign, the endless events, the scrutiny, the constant performance of the perfect political wife. She sank onto the sofa. "I made some mistakes. Sent some texts to an old boyfriend that weren't exactly wholesome. Bradley found them. Does anyone else know you're here?" She shook her head. "I told Mom I was at a spa retreat to gather myself before the divorce proceedings begin. I needed somewhere to disappear for a while." The implication hung in the air, she wanted to stay here. With me. The sister who had made childhood a gauntlet of insecurities, who had whispered you'll never measure up when our parents weren't listening, who had systematically undermined every accomplishment I managed. "Melissa," I began carefully, "we haven't exactly maintained a close relationship." "I know." She stared into the fireplace. "I haven't been kind to you." The understatement was so profound it almost made me laugh. "You were horrible to me," I corrected, feeling decades of suppressed honesty rising to the surface. "You deliberately made me feel inferior at every opportunity. You turned our parents against me." "They always favored me," she admitted, surprising me. "I didn't have to try very hard." "But you did try. Constantly." "Why?" "You already had everything." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "Because you were the smart one? The truly intelligent one. Mom and Dad couldn't see past my social skills and perfect grades, but I knew. Your mind works differently, better. I was terrified someday they'd realize it too." The confession staggered me. All those years, I believed myself the lesser daughter, never suspecting Melissa harbored her own insecurities. "So you tore me down to ensure they never noticed?" "I was a child, then a teenager. By the time I understood the damage I was doing, the pattern was set." She wiped at her eyes. "I'm not making excuses. What I did was unforgivable." I paced before the fireplace, processing this revelation. The script I'd followed my entire life, Melissa as the golden child, me as the afterthought, suddenly required revision. "Why are you telling me this now? Because you need somewhere to hide?" "Partly," she admitted. "But also because when everything fell apart, I realized you're the only person who ever saw the real me. Not the perfect daughter, perfect wife, perfect mother, just me, flaws and all. Everyone else is shocked by my breakdown. You wouldn't be." There was truth in her statement. I had witnessed her manipulations, her insecurities, her cruelties. I knew Melissa beneath the polished exterior she presented to the world. "What exactly are you asking for?" "A few weeks. Until January." Somewhere Bradley's investigators won't think to look while my lawyer builds a countercase. She hesitated. I know I have no right to ask. She didn't. Yet here she sat in my carefully constructed sanctuary, disrupting the peaceful existence I created 3,000 miles from our shared history. The guest house has its own entrance and kitchen, I heard myself saying. You'd have privacy. Relief washed over her features. Thank you, Jenny. Don't thank me yet. I have conditions. She nodded, expectant. Complete honesty between us from this point forward. No manipulation, no games. I refilled my wine glass. And you need to address your dependency on Xanax. I know a discreet addiction specialist in San Francisco. I'm not an addict, she protested automatically. Condition 1 already broken, I observed. Try again. She sighed heavily. Fine. I'll see your specialist. And you'll contribute while you're here. I'm expanding the Vineyard's online presence. You always had a gift for persuasive writing. You can help with marketing content. You want me to work for you? Her tone carried a hint of the old condescension. I want you to earn your keep. Consider it part of your recovery, contributing actual value instead of just maintaining appearances. She appeared ready to argue but thought better of it. Anything else? Yes. You need to call Mom and tell her where you really are. This condition clearly surprised her. Why? Because I'm tired of secrets and lying in this family. If we're going to attempt any kind of reconciliation, it starts with transparency. Melissa studied me with new awareness. You changed. I've grown. There's a difference. Later that evening, after showing Melissa to the guest house, I stood on my bedroom balcony overlooking the now moonlit vineyard. The snow had stopped, leaving a crystalline blanket across the landscape. My phone vibrated with a text message from my sister. Thank you. I mean it. I didn't respond immediately. The girl who had endured years of psychological warfare would have savored this moment, Melissa humbled, dependent on my charity. But that satisfaction felt hollow now, a relic of a person I no longer needed to be. The following weeks unfolded in a strange new rhythm. Melissa attended twice-weekly sessions with Dr. Levinson in the city. I drove her there myself the first time, half expecting her to bail at the last minute, but she emerged 2 hours later with red-rimmed eyes and quiet determination. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, she remarked on the drive back. That's why I recommended him. She helped with the Vineyard's marketing as agreed, revealing a genuine talent for capturing the essence of the place in words. Our conversations, initially stilted and cautious, gradually found a tentative ease. We established boundaries, certain topics remained too raw for casual discussion, but within those parameters, we discovered fragments of the sisterhood we might have had under different circumstances. Mom called after Melissa's confession about her whereabouts. I don't understand what's happening between you two, she admitted. But I'm grateful you're helping her. We're helping each other, I replied, surprising myself with the realization that this was true. Christmas approached. I typically spent the holiday with friends or occasionally traveled abroad, but this year felt different. Melissa and I decorated a modest tree in the main house, hanging ornaments while classical carols played softly. Remember the Christmas you got a chemistry set and I got a diamond tennis bracelet? She asked, hanging a crystal snowflake on a lower branch. Vividly. I was jealous of that chemistry set, she confessed. The bracelet was just for show, to impress Mom's friends. You got something that actually sparked your mind. These moments of revelation continue to catch me off guard, pieces of our shared history reframed through honest conversation. Not all memories found redemption, but understanding brought its own form of peace. 3 days before Christmas, Melissa received news from her lawyer. Bradley had agreed to mediation rather than a public court battle, concerned about potential political fallout. The children would split time between both parents, and the financial settlement would be more equitable than his initial proposal. He's worried about what Dr. Levinson might testify about his role in my anxiety issues, she explained, a hint of the old strategic Melissa showing through. Plus, his girlfriend apparently isn't thrilled about becoming an instant mother to 3 kids. Will you go back for the mediation? She nodded. January 3rd. But. She hesitated. But what? I'd like to come back afterward. Not to stay permanently, she clarified quickly. Just until I find my footing. Figure out what's next. The request didn't surprise me as much as my response to it. The guest house is yours for as long as you need. After Melissa's departure for the East Coast, the villa felt strangely empty. I'd grown accustomed to our morning coffee ritual, her emerging from the guest house around 8, crossing the frost-covered garden to join me on the kitchen patio when weather permitted. Our conversations had evolved from cautious small talk to something deeper, excavating shared memories and examining them through adult perspectives. Tyler visited for New Year's Eve, bringing his warmth and easy laughter back into spaces that now echoed with absence. Having recently relocated to Seattle, his visit represented our enduring friendship despite the romantic relationship having ended. We opened a bottle of champagne at midnight, toasting on the terrace despite the winter chill. "You seem different," he observed, studying my face in the moonlight. "More settled somehow." I considered his assessment. "Having Melissa here has been unexpectedly healing." "That surprises you?" "Everything about it surprises me," I admitted. I expected to feel vindicated seeing her brought low. Instead, I feel like we're both finally becoming whole people instead of just playing our assigned roles. He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in the gesture that had become his signature over the years. "You've always been whole, Jenny. You just needed to recognize it." Tyler had met Melissa briefly during her stay, the encounter initially awkward but eventually cordial. He withheld judgment afterward, simply commenting that he could see both the similarities and differences between us. "She has your analytical mind," he noted, "but uses it differently." Now, as we stood beneath the vast California night sky, I found myself contemplating futures I hadn't previously allowed myself to imagine. "I've been thinking about expanding the educational app," I told him. "Creating a full suite of mathematics learning tools accessible to students regardless of resources or background." "The Jennifer Harrington Foundation for Mathematical Excellence?" he suggested with a playful smile. "Something like that. A way to reach the kids who don't fit the standard educational model. The ones who think differently but don't have advocates." He nodded, understanding the deeper motivation behind my words. "Kids like you were." "Like I was," I agreed. The idea had been forming gradually over recent months, crystallizing during conversations with Melissa about our childhood. The golden child/scapegoat dynamic had damaged both of us, albeit in different ways. Creating educational opportunities specifically designed for overlooked students felt like transforming personal pain into meaningful impact. The following week, while Melissa attended mediation sessions in Boston, I began researching educational foundations and nonprofit structures. My financial advisors connected me with specialists in philanthropic ventures, and the framework for the Divergent Thinking Initiative took shape, a foundation focused on identifying and supporting mathematically gifted students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Melissa returned in mid-January, subdued but resolute after finalizing her divorce proceedings. Bradley had secured primary physical custody of the children during the school year, with Melissa having extended vacation time and alternating holidays. "The courts still favor fathers with stable income and family support over mothers with recent substance issues," she explained one evening, nursing a cup of herbal tea. "Even with the best lawyers." "I'm sorry about the custody arrangement," I offered sincerely. She shrugged, the gesture failing to mask her pain. The irony is I was always the one who had their schedules memorized, who knew which foods they would or wouldn't eat, who helped with homework while Bradley networked at fundraisers. But perception trumps reality in family court. Over the following weeks, Melissa immersed herself in work for the Vineyard's marketing campaign. Her writing skill translated complex viticultural concepts into compelling narratives that increased online sales significantly. The structured days seemed to provide therapeutic benefit beyond the financial compensation. In late February, during one of our now regular evening conversations, she broached a subject we'd carefully avoided. "I saw the foundation documents on your desk," she began cautiously. "The educational initiative." I tensed slightly. The project felt personal, vulnerable in ways I wasn't sure I was ready to share. "It's still in development." "It's brilliant," she said simply. "Identifying mathematical talent that traditional methods miss." "You read the entire proposal?" "Enough to understand the concept." She hesitated. "I hope you don't mind." Rather than the invasion of privacy I might have felt months earlier, I experienced a curious relief. "What do you think?" "I think it's exactly what would have helped you." Her voice softened. "What should have been there for you?" The acknowledgement, direct and unequivocal, caught me off guard. For decades, I'd craved this simple validation from my family, recognition that the educational system had failed to nurture my particular gifts, that I'd succeeded despite rather than because of the opportunities provided. "Thank you," I managed, emotion tightening my throat. Melissa set down her wine glass. "I'd like to help, if you'll allow it. The foundation will need someone with experience navigating educational bureaucracy and advocating for policy changes." Her offer surprised me. "You want to work for the foundation?" "With you," she corrected. "As partners." "My legal background combined with your mathematical expertise and financial resources." The proposal required consideration. Working professionally with Melissa would introduce new dynamics to our fragile reconciliation. Yet her skills complemented mine in ways that could significantly strengthen the initiative's impact. "Let me think about it," I said finally. That night, I called Tyler in Seattle to process the unexpected development. Despite our romantic relationship having ended, We'd maintained a friendship that I valued deeply, particularly in moments requiring perspective. "Do you trust her motives?" he asked after listening to my recounting. "I think I do," I realized. "She's different now. Or maybe I'm seeing parts of her that were always there beneath the perfect daughter persona." "People can change," he agreed. "Especially after their carefully constructed identity crumbles. Is it naive to believe in second chances?" He chuckled softly. Says the woman who gives them daily to struggling calculus students through her app. His perspective, as always, provided clarity. The next morning, I approached Melissa with conditions for our potential partnership. "Equal responsibilities but clearly defined roles," I proposed. "You handle legal, educational policy, and institutional relationships. I manage the financial structure, technological implementation, and curriculum development." She nodded, eyes brightening with purpose for the first time since arriving at my door. "Agreed. And professional counseling, separate and joint sessions. If we're going to build something meaningful together, we need to address the patterns that nearly destroyed us both." She accepted without hesitation. "When do we start?" By spring, the Divergent Thinking Initiative had incorporated as a nonprofit organization with headquarters in a renovated Victorian in San Francisco. Melissa found an apartment in the city, maintaining weekend visits to the villa as we developed the foundation's infrastructure. Our mother called after seeing the press release announcing the foundation's first scholarship recipients, 12 middle school students from underserved communities with exceptional mathematical aptitude. "This is wonderful work, girls," she said, the plural acknowledgement at first in my memory. "Your father and I are very proud." The validation felt simultaneously gratifying and oddly irrelevant. Somewhere in the journey of the past months, external approval had lost its centrality in my measure of success. Summer brought the first cohort of students to a 2-week residential program at Stanford University. Watching these young mathematicians, many previously labeled as troublemakers or underachievers by traditional educational standards, flourish under appropriate challenges and mentorship provided satisfaction beyond any professional achievement I'd previously experienced. One afternoon, observing a group session from the back of the classroom, I noticed Melissa engaged in animated conversation with a girl who reminded me startlingly of myself at 12, serious eyes behind thick glasses, fingers constantly in motion, mind clearly racing several steps ahead of the discussion. Later, Melissa joined me for the walk across campus. "Amara reminds me of you," she commented, confirming my observation. "Brilliant but invisible to a system designed for different kinds of intelligence. She has advantages I didn't," I noted. Melissa glanced at me. "Like what?" "She has advocates now. People who see her." My sister nodded, understanding the layers beneath my statement. "We're breaking the cycle." On a warm September evening nearly a year after Melissa's unexpected arrival on my doorstep, we celebrated the Foundation's successful first programming cycle with a small gathering at the villa. Several former colleagues from the tech industry attended, along with key staff from both the Foundation and Vineyard. Melissa approached as I stood slightly apart, watching the sunset paint the vineyard in golden hues. "I have news," she said, uncharacteristic nervousness in her voice. "I've been offered a teaching position at Berkeley Law, clinical professor focusing on family law reform." "That's fantastic," I replied sincerely. "Will you accept?" "I'm going to. It means staying in California permanently." She hesitated. "The kids will be with me for the entire summer and school breaks. I found a place in Berkeley with enough bedrooms for everyone." The development represented another evolution in our relationship, from temporary arrangement to permanent proximity. "We should have a family dinner when they visit," I suggested, surprising myself with the offer. "They should know their aunt." Gratitude flickered across her features. "I'd like that." As twilight deepened into evening, lights illuminated the terrace. One of my former colleagues from Vertex, now a venture capitalist investing in education technology, approached with glasses of the Vineyard's signature Cabernet. "To unexpected journeys," he proposed, raising his glass to include both Melissa and me. The term captured perfectly the path that had brought us here, from bitter estrangement to tentative collaboration to something approaching genuine sisterhood. Not perfect or without occasional tensions, but authentic in ways our previous relationship had never been. On Christmas Eve, we opened a bottle from my reserve collection, a complex Syrah with notes of blackberry and pepper. Sitting before the fireplace, Melissa raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she offered. I studied her face across the rim of my glass, the sister who had once been my tormentor now transformed by circumstance into something approaching a friend. The journey wasn't complete, nor all wounds healed, but the direction had fundamentally changed. "To seeing people as they are," I countered, "not as we need them to be." Our glasses clinked, the sound ringing clear through the room like a bell marking the hour. Outside, a few sparse snowflakes began to fall again, unusual for this part of California. Together we watched them descend against the darkness, each one unique, each finding its own path to the ground below. The mathematics of family, I was learning, involved more variables than I'd accounted for in my algorithms. 10 years of separation. 38 years of sisterhood. Countless moments of pain. Innumerable opportunities for redemption. The equation remained unsolved, complex beyond simple calculation. But for the first time, we were both working toward the same solution.